Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Richard Prouse. Richard, thanks for coming into the Nook at the Epicurean.
My pleasure.
And talking. And I guess I'll ask first, how did you end up in Rhinebeck?
A good friend of ours, Leslie McNeil, lives up here, and she had offered Donald a place to write.
Okay.
This is many, many years ago.
And this is your husband, Donald?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so I came up and visited him at her house while he was writing, and we both decided this is where we want to live.
At her house, 25 or 27 South Street?
27, right? Yeah.
That's funny. I lived in that house for a couple of years.
Yes, I've heard.
Oh, you did? I had not even realized, I had not remembered that connection with Leslie McNeil.
Right.
Who I haven't seen in forever since she moved away from South Street. I hardly ever see her
She
anymore.
now lives with us.
Very nice. On Rhinebeck, Rhinecliff Road?
Yes. My studio has a studio apartment attached to it.
Oh,
and
very nice.
That's where she's living.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, send my regards to Leslie McNeil. She's a great connector of so much of Rhinebeck and Rhinecliff. And you came up here from the city.
Yes.
Where you lived for a number of years.
Yes.
Working on various Broadway productions, mostly live theater.
Mostly live theater. I have done, I think, 6 or 7 major films. And I did a bunch of television, did the Bill Cosby Show and a number of commercials.
Bill Cosby Show and the Louis C.K. Show.
I preferred live theater.
Right. And
that's where I'm from.
And, okay, because that feels like home to you.
Yes.
Well, I prepared a quick lightning round quiz, as I mentioned. You grimaced when I said this. I did it last week with Martin. It was kind of fun, so I thought I'd try it this week.
All right.
A quick sort of Broadway painter quiz. Finish this sentence. The Bronx is up and the battery's down. The people ride in a...
I can't.
People ride in a whole ground.
Yes, of course. Thanks.
How many minutes in a year?
Oh, please.
From Rent, 525,600 a minute. All right, Funny Girl is based on the life of whom?
Dolly Levi.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Yes. No. Fanny Brice. Pardon me.
Right. All right. Where is the Lucille Lortel Theater?
44th between 7th and 8th.
Great. We'll take it. Where's the Winter Garden Theater?
Madison Square Garden.
Okay. What word is defined as an annoying person, provocateur, or a fly that bites livestock?
A gadfly.
That's right. And last December, where could local residents see a human gadfly?
In Rhinebeck.
That's
at
right.
Sinterklass.
That's right. And who designed that gadfly's costume?
Gene Fleming and myself.
It was spectacular. So good. And it's on the Sinterklass website. And it's really a cool outfit. What's the common name for the... I don't know what it's saying. What's the common name for the wild onion that foragers love to harvest from local woods this time of year? They look like scallions. Ramp is the answer. What's the Union for United Scenic Artists?
United Scenic Artists, Local 829.
And you were in that for a number of years.
Yes.
Are you still in this union?
I'm retired, but I can still work union a few days a month if I want without losing my pension.
Okay. And do you have to work a certain amount of days a month to keep the pension? No. You're on it. You're done.
If I do, I'm allowed 10 days a month. If I do that 10 days a month, I don't lose my pension, and I continue to contribute to the fund. If I work more than 10 days, then I lose my pension for that month.
And has it been a good thing? I guess it has, being a member of that union.
Oh, God, yes.
And you've been a member for decades and decades.
37 years.
Amazing. All right, a few more questions. Quiz. What does IATSE stand for?
International Stagehands Union. Oh, my God.
I know. You didn't know we were going to have a pop quiz, did you? All right. What's the French word for trick of the eye or optical illusion?
Trompe-l'oeil.
That's right. What's the word for the part of this theater stage? I didn't know this. That's in front of the curtain.
The apron.
Okay. Name a town that Route 66 passes through.
Albuquerque, New Mexico.
And how do you happen to know that?
I was born and raised there.
Really? How many years ago? You don't have to answer that one. Name another town Route 66 goes through.
Dallas?
Gallup, Flagstaff?
No, it might go through Flagstaff, yes.
What's your favorite color of paint?
Purple?
What's your favorite brand of paint?
I don't have a favorite brand.
You don't? Well, what brand do you use? You paint lots of backdrops and scenic stuff.
For the theater, it's called Off-Broadway. Roscoe is the brand name.
So it's sort
and
of
it's a scene paint. Very saturated, beautiful colors. You could never use it, say, outside because it doesn't have enough binder to put up with the elements. But for scenery, it's great.
So why would it be light in binder?
Probably for weight.
Interesting, because some of the backdrops
are huge.
Are huge.
Yeah.
And do you still paint backdrops?
When I go back to work, I do, yes.
Okay, then no more than 10 days a month.
That's right.
But you have a studio here. I thought I saw
Yes.
a picture online
Yes.
of you with big backdrops in your studio.
Yes. Those I paint for regional theaters, community theaters, high school productions, that sort of thing. And they can't really afford me, so they pay for the materials, and I keep it, I own it, and then I rent it out, hopefully, throughout the rest of my life, my passive income.
And how do they find you? Word of mouth?
A lot of them found me through the Select Backdrops website, which is sadly not well maintained. I must get back on that. Word of mouth.
Okay. So Select Backdrops is your website for that business.
Yes.
And it's kind of pretty. I went there. It doesn't seem like it needs a lot of maintenance.
Well, there's maybe 24 samples on that website, and I've got about 78 drops now.
Okay. So that's a big job to get all of those up there.
And it's very hard to photograph something that large.
Probably be good for business.
Oh, yeah.
To get them all up there.
Yes. I finally ended up rigging something on the outside of my studio that was tall enough and wide enough that I could photograph them outside, but now there's a tree has grown up and it's in the way, so I can't do that.
Oh, no. Well, so could you rig that somewhere else? Like, how tall are some of these backdrops?
Most of the ones that I'm doing for my business are 17 high by about 32 wide. Whereas a Broadway is 32 high by 50 feet wide. So,
egads. And
big difference.
And are those usually just one huge piece of? I mean, what do you use? Canvas or linen or
muslin?
Muslin, because is that
and
light?
scenic canvas, which I think is just a heavier muslin.
Okay. It seems like you were talking about weight, that you'd probably want to use the lightest thing.
I would imagine that's part of the reason. Another reason is that if a drop goes out on the road, it's folded up, unfolded, folded up,
right,
unfolded. So you want the paint to be as thin as it can be. Myself and another scenic artist developed a technique. I guess I shouldn't take credit for developing it, but we largely paint drops in dye first and tickle it with paint later. And it turns out that those survive the road a lot better because there's no thickness at all. It's dye. So they're treated like watercolor, actually, but very intense.
So there's no ground, there's no like gesso or something?
No. They're primed usually with starch. That's it.
And do they come to you pre-primed with starch? So you do that.
Yes.
And
that's part of my job.
And then you brush them with dye. And you've had this job for 30 some years. How did you first get into this? How did you start doing that?
Way back in Albuquerque, high school. I was doing community theater. And shortly after high school, the director of one of those companies wanted to know if I wanted to audition for How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. And I thought, by that time, I knew I didn't have the stuff to be on stage. But a friend of mine stood up and said, "But he can paint." And she said, "Oh, I have a backdrop. Would you like to paint backdrop?" And I said, "Well, I never have." And she knew all the tricks. and she showed me how, and I painted it. It was $300, which was great money back then. And I just was hooked. And then I became a designer for many theater companies in Albuquerque. I never really felt very good at it. I needed too much information. I just wasn't creative enough. But I could paint anything. So when I decided to move to New York, I decided I'm going to be a scenic artist, not a set designer. And I don't have the backbone for it, or it's kind of a backstabbing sort of, and it's a hard road to travel. So you're going to have one designer for a set. You're going to have up to 100 scenic artists working on it. So that seemed the more practical route.
It's good. Well, it seems like you enjoyed that more.
Yeah, absolutely.
And why is the set designer less agreeable? Is it super high pressure?
Yeah, they have to answer to a lot of high-powered money people, as well as the director.
Gotcha.
And then you have to answer to him, which is him or her, which is easier than the suits.
You only answer to the set designer.
Right.
And are there different levels of scenic artists?
Yes, not really as far as pay is concerned, because it's a union and we have a base minimum, and times are tough, and so pretty much everybody works for minimum wage, which is a nice wage, but you're all pretty much the same tier. You will get better and better projects as you progress if you're good. So the work got better, but the pay is pretty much equal.
You say minimum wage, but it's the union minimum wage, not the federal one.
Right.
Huh. So that's interesting. So you could be in it for years and years and years, and you don't get a raise unless everybody gets a raise.
No, not necessarily. You can negotiate for a higher wage, which I had done for a while. And then I decided that what I really wanted was more time off.
Right.
And so I kept to the minimum, and but at the charge rate. So I should clarify that. Yes, there is a charge rate for each production, and that's the lead scenic artist is going to get a higher rate than the journeymen who are working under them. But all the journeymen are earning the same, and in that shop, all the charge people are earning the same. There could be 2 or 3 different productions in a shop at a time.
Gotcha.
And there's going to be a charge person for each project. So I decided I'd keep with the minimum charge rate and take more time off, and promise my boss that I wouldn't take another job. And so he would let me go. He would often, my boss being Joe Forbes, who I worked for 28 years or whatever it was, he would often keep valuable artists working on horrible pieces just so that they wouldn't go away, because they would get hired on another project and then they wouldn't be available and he'd be stuck. And I just said, no, don't worry about it. I won't go away.
Is it fairly competitive? I mean, does Joe Forbes have lots of competition in that realm?
No, there are not that many scene shops. 3 or 4 maybe.
Okay.
So.
So now you've got more time off, and what are you doing with it?
Oh, more of my community outreach stuff, if that's the proper word. My volunteer stuff for Rhinebeck Science Foundation, Sinterklass, Winnicke Land Trust, decorating usually their big fundraiser parties.
And the Rhinebeck Science Foundation has a big party coming up.
Yes.
So are you working on the decorations for that?
Yes, I am.
And they have a theme every year, right?
Yes.
What is this year's theme?
Ooh, okay.
Speakeasy.
I didn't know whether I could tell. Yes, of course. The invitations have gone out, so yes, speakeasy.
And it's being held down at the golf course.
Yes, we lost
down there,
Grasmere Barn, which is so sad. It was such a big, wonderful space, but
that was a great spot, and it sort of became synonymous with the gala.
It was. It was also took a lot of work and a lot of product to decorate something that big. So in a way, it's kind of good. In another way, it's not, because it can't hold as many people. So we'll see. I'm sure it'll be fun anyway.
Yeah, can't wait. I don't know if I'll go. I'll try to buy a ticket, but I'd love to see what you do in that space. The ceilings, I've been there. I think not as high,
nowhere near as high
as they are in the barn,
right?
Which might be fine for a speakeasy. You don't sort of, I don't think of them as voluminous spaces,
right?
And so you volunteer your time for this. That's fabulous. Thank you, on behalf of everybody who benefits. And how many hours? When is it? It's May something?
May 6th. May 6th.
So that's right around the corner.
Yeah.
So last week, say you spent 10 hours working on this, and this week 20, and next week 40. I mean, is that how it sort of ramps up for you?
No, I haven't done very much so far, except dream, a few sketches.
Okay.
Most of the work is going to happen the week before.
Okay.
And it will be a solid week.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if you need volunteers, keep me in mind.
I heard it.
Volunteer.
I heard you.
Yeah. Well, it's a good cause.
It is a good cause.
Right. Yeah. And Rhinebeck Science Foundation provides grants for teachers in the Rhinebeck School District who have science, technology, engineering, arts, and math projects that they want to do, right? And
I believe so. Jen would answer that better.
Yeah.
Good job, man.
The producer, great. Thank you. And so it is. It's a great cause, and thank you for your service to that. And do you have a portfolio of work that you do in that realm? Do you keep pictures? And no, you're retired.
Really.
You don't
Not
do
really.
it anymore.
You know, I used to do it
Years
ago. I used to do it, and then I just gave up. Now it would be huge.
Right.
It would be huge. I've worked on close to 200 Broadway shows, and the pictures are, well, in the first place, it was only the last 15 or 20 years where we had cell phones and could take pictures. And when the projects that we work on, the drops that we work on, we paint on the floor. We don't paint them upright. So the perspective is very difficult. To take a picture of a drop that's on the floor.
Right.
And once it's in the theater lights are too hot. So you really need a professional to take those pictures. And you're not allowed to show them until the show opens. And then you even have to have permission because it's all controlled.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Huh. And what other, how'd you put it, public service projects do you have going on around here? You do Sinterklass.
Yes.
Right. And how did you start up with that? Did you meet Gene Fleming in the city or here? Or
Yes and no.
Yeah.
When I moved to the city in 1980, I had heard about the Halloween parade and was fascinated by it. And I think it was my husband Donald and my roommate Kathy and I went to the Halloween parade as the Dead Hamlets. I actually made crowns that held dry ice. Big mistake. It looked great, but it was very cold. Yes.
Okay.
And then the next year, we made these wild costumes. We went down for the parade, and Jean spotted us and said she wanted us to lead the parade. Well, many years later, like 12 or 15 years later, I went to a arts council award ceremony, I think it was in Poughkeepsie, and Jean was being awarded, and on the table of auction goods, I guess, was a book called Masked Culture, which is about the Halloween parade, and the centerfold was us. And so I went to Jean and I said, "You remember me?" She's like, "Oh yes, I do." And then, of course, that was that. Then I had to...
She enlisted you again.
Absolutely. Immediately, yeah.
Right. She seems to have a special talent for enlisting helpers.
Yes, she does.
And so when did you say that was? A while ago.
Oh, man. 12 years? 13 years?
So you've been working with Sinterklass for 12 or 13 years.
Yeah, or more. 15?
And
What's the anniversary? This past year was maybe, I think, the 15th,
I'm not sure.
something like that.
And what is your role in that?
It has been that I do the stage backdrop for the pageant at the end of the parade.
Right.
And oftentimes I was a grumpus going around terrorizing the kids during the day. This past year, I ended up creating an immersive environment that was in the courtyard behind Betsy Giaccarusso's studio,
Right.
which was a forest that was full of foresty sounds and
I saw that. It was gorgeous. Because last year the animal was the porcupine.
yes. And I also made a large porcupine out of rows of Sharon branches and an old garden cart that rolled along with the parade.
Oh, yeah. I remember
was
seeing
fun.
that too.
Yeah.
Do rows of Sharon branches have thorns?
No,
No. Okay.
no. But if you let them go, the branches are very straight and supple
So perfect
and long.
for
So it worked out well. And I just finished dredging one of our ponds, which involved moving at least 300 or 400 cattails, as well as about 50 rows of Sharon bushes. So, and I just used those. There they were, and I thought, that looks like a porcupine.
And where are your ponds?
They're in between the house and the studio.
Oh, okay, somewhere between there and here. Because the studio's in Rhinecliff?
No,
Oh.
that's such a hard one. Rhinecliff is part of the village of Rhinebeck, or it's the town of Rhinebeck.
Yeah.
So we're all kind of the same. I'm about 5 houses this side of River Road on Rhinecliff Road.
Okay.
So it's an 11-minute walk to the train.
Okay. And your studio's right there?
Yes.
Okay, because I saw somewhere online that you had a studio in Rhinecliff.
Yeah. People get that confused.
That's very nice.
Yes,
So you
it's
leave your house, you go a few steps across the yard,
Yeah.
and you're in the studio.
Yeah.
And there are ponds right there.
A pond now.
A pond. And how does one dredge a pond? Don't you roll your eyes at me.
Well, my husband said, let's get a heavy machinery in here and just pull out all the cattails. And I thought that would be a muddy, horrible mess. So I figured I'd see whether or not I could just pull one out. And it wasn't too bad. So I just did it. It took me about 2 weeks, about 4 or 5 hours a day.
And you use a shovel to loosen up the
shovel
roots and pull out?
and just my hands.
Are they invasive? Is that why you need?
Yes,
Okay.
hugely. And the network of roots are enormous and crazy.
So you did that last year?
Yeah. And then I resculpted the bottom of it with rakes and shovels. And then we put down a real pond liner, which was about 500 pounds worth of rubber.
Oh, boy.
And there had not been any rain for a long time. So it sat there baking in the sun. I couldn't touch it. It was so hot. So I'm hoping that whatever root structure was left behind was fried underneath that black rubber. And now they're full and beautiful, or it's full and beautiful.
Oh, good.
Yeah. It took me all summer.
And so if there's a rubber liner, then I guess the only things that are growing are stuff that you plant yourself?
Yeah. Well, there's nothing growing in the pond.
Okay. But on the
I
side
also
of the
created the dike that holds back that pond. I rebuilt that and turned it into what's called a bog filter. So the pump pumps water from the pond to this 25-foot chase, 3 tiers. So the water drops 3 times, not very much, only about 6 inches, but it goes through 24 feet worth of gravel and different sizes of rock. And as soon as the weather permits, we will then put in bog plants. And theoretically, by the time it goes that 24 feet, you could drink it.
Interesting. This sounds like a perfect job for somebody who's recently retired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having a great time.
That's good.
We actually got in it today.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. It was lovely.
Swam in the pond.
Yeah.
And was it pretty warm? Does the black liner heat up the water?
I was surprised at how warm it was. It was cold,
So,
but it was not as cold as I expected it to be.
or maybe, yeah. So after like a week of 100-degree temperature,
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking it might be too warm. We'll see.
it'll still be.
I got to throw in the garden hose every once in a while and cool it off.
And you have a well, I'm guessing.
No, we don't. We're on city water.
Oh, you're in town water.
Yeah.
So,
But I haven't had to fill it with town water.
It's still probably pretty cool. The town water it comes out of the garden. hose.
Yeah. But I wouldn't want to use it. It's got chlorine in it, and we want fish.
Okay.
So I would only use it in an emergency. We have a lot of groundwater. It's not a spring, but it keeps it pretty moist.
Will you bring fish in, and what kind?
Koi.
Koi.
Yeah.
Nice. And you'll feed them, I guess. I mean, because there's no plants in there for them to.
Well, they'll feed off of algae.
Okay.
We might end up feeding them some food. We did when we had koi before. We did feed them occasionally, but the trouble with feeding them is that it adds an organic base to the pond that promotes algae. So you're kind of defeating the purpose.
Right.
Right.
Huh. Very
So as soon
interesting.
as I build a pontoon of sorts, so that they have some protection, we'll bring in some. The last time we did this, the heron came and got them all.
Oh boy.
Just destroyed them. Within 3 years, they were gone.
So a pontoon just sort of like a protective cover for shade and protection from the herons.
Yeah.
What other wildlife? You ever see a porcupine there?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh no, not a porcupine.
Skunks.
Well, skunks had a raccoon took up residence for a little while. That was my fault. I rescued it. I think the mother had died, and there were 3 babies on the ground. One of them dead. One of them trying to nurse the other one.
Right.
And I don't know what happened to it, but one of them survived, and I nurtured it, raised it for a little while, and then it became very possessive, or not possessive is not the word, territorial.
Right.
And lived underneath a walkway that we had created and would come out and growl at you. So
Oh no.
one day I went out there with a garden hose and I just sprayed it, and it kept running further and further away, and I sprayed it into the woods, and I never saw it again.
Poor guy. He's probably still in the woods crying.
Yeah, I doubt it.
He used to like me, and now he's kicked me
I
out.
doubt it. They don't make good pets.
No. All right. Well, let's share a drink to your raccoon who's thrust away from paradise. As is tradition, you brought a cocktail for us to enjoy.
I did,
this
but I
fine
didn't know there were
Friday
going to be so
evening.
many mouths.
Oh, they don't drink much, these two.
Let's see if
Matt
I can
and
do
Jen.
this. Let's see if I can do this right.
Yeah, let me know if I can help. What did you bring?
I brought ice.
Good. Good start.
Although there probably is ice here, isn't there?
Yeah, do you need ice? We can get you
I
ice.
think I'll be all right. So I have some ice. I hope this is being picked up on the mic.
Yeah, it is. There, I'll show you. I'll open it.
All right, and a tiny little cocktail shaker. Looks so nice, and Svedka. Vodka.
Yes. Try not to spill it on your equipment.
Oh, that's okay. It's not my equipment.
No, I think I'm going to measure this correctly, but I might be wrong.
Oh,
Let's
you're
see.
measuring. So a couple of capfuls of vodka, a bunch of pieces of ice, and you're putting the cap on the shaker. You can shake it up.
There you go.
Nice. Oh, look, a beautiful martini glass. Here's another one.
Those gorgeous glasses. Huh?
These
I
glasses
think
are
they're-
gorgeous.
I think they were Donald's grandmother's.
Wow,
Pretty damn good, right?
Wow.
that's nice.
Impressive.
So there's
And I'm not even a bartender.
yeah. So there's one, and you're garnishing. Oh boy. So it's vodka and jalapenos.
Fresh jalapeno.
Fresh
They have to
jalapenos.
be fresh. and you don't necessarily want to partake in them, but they just add sort of a greenness to them.
Okay.
And I created this being bored with the usual olive, and I thought, what else could I do? I'm tired of olives. I don't want a salty martini, and I thought jalapeno.
Well, you're from Albuquerque, from New Mexico.
I'm from New Mexico, but that
Did you
means
think
nothing because New Mexico is not about jalapenos.
Well, did you think about putting in the Hatch green peppers?
I don't think that flavor would work.
Okay.
There's something about the fresh jalapeno that is like a fresh mown lawn.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's very green and fresh.
And,
Whereas a Hatch is going to be mustier.
yeah.
Is that the proper term?
It is.
Mustier?
Yeah, my sister lives out that way in Albuquerque. And she's always pushing those Hatch peppers on me.
They're the best.
Yeah.
They're the best. And in the fall, there's so many people roasting chilies.
Uh-huh.
It was one of my first jobs, actually, was peeling roasted chilies for a Mexican restaurant. And
Really?
I did
So,
that-
like,
I did that
8-hour
for a while.
shifts of
Oh, my God. My
peeling
hands would just burn.
blistered peppers.
Burn. It was before we thought about using gloves.
Uh-huh. And did you ever, you must have at some point, committed the tragic error of touching your eyes or your nose
I still do.
while peeling peppers.
Every once in a while. And usually after I put the jalapeno in, because I'm using my fingers, I will then dip my fingers in the alcohol so that I don't make that mistake.
And the alcohol takes the heat off of your fingers.
Yeah.
I never knew that. And you're doing it now, dipping your fingers in there.
Yep.
Well, cheers. These really are gorgeous glasses, and it's a beautiful drink with the jalapenos in there. You're gonna try not to spill it all over.
They aren't floating, however, which is odd. They usually do.
Oh, that is
See,
so
there's
delicious.
A bit of heat to it, but not much.
Yeah, really nice. So how old were you when you left Albuquerque?
24.
So you stuck around for a little bit after high school doing working in the theater in various capacities. And then was it just like New York calling? Like, I've got to go to Broadway?
Not really. I would kind of thought, why do people leave Albuquerque? Albuquerque could be so great if they'd all just stay. But this wonderful gal who ended up being my roommate, or I ended up being her roommate, after she had graduated from the University of New Mexico, she moved to New York and landed a job right away as a gopher electrician, which is somebody who works in an electric shop and coils cable and cleans lighting instruments, you know, one of those. But she was an aspiring stage manager and a really good stage manager. And she landed an apartment that she couldn't afford and said, "You want to come out?" And my design partner and I said, "Okay, let's do it." And so there were 3 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment. And I've been in that building ever since.
Oh, nice. But not the same apartment.
Not the same apartment. At one point, another friend of ours wanted to move there. And because I was on the lease, I had entree to a studio apartment, which I then took the lease on that. The friend moved in and ended up, like, less than a month later, she became pregnant and said, "I can't do this. I have to leave." And so I was stuck with a second apartment. And that was okay because by that time Donald had moved in. So the original 1-bedroom apartment became my studio and our living room and kitchen. And then our bedroom was the studio apartment, which was 2 flights up.
Okay. So
Then the building went co-op. And because I had a lease, not on the 1-bedroom, but on the studio apartment, we managed to buy in for $1,000.
$1,000? You bought your
$1,000.
apartment for $1,000? That was the insider's price, so that
Yep.
people wouldn't.
Yep, and the building nearly went under, so it was very scary for a long time. But now it's wonderful. The building is very secure.
What happened
and
to
great.
the one bedroom?
I don't know. It went the way of apartments going away. You know, I didn't have the lease on that.
Right.
I was an acknowledged tenant, I guess.
Gotcha.
But Kathy had the lease. I didn't. She didn't want to buy it, so she let it go.
And how many units in this building? Where is
200?
it? Oh, so it is a big
West
apartment
45th
building.
Street between 8th and 9th, right across the street from the Al Hirschfeld Theater,
Okay. West 45th.
which was the Martin Beck at the time.
And isn't there's artists housing over there somewhere?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, a big high rise.
Oh, yeah. The
Trying to remember what
Manhattan Plaza, not Plaza.
Manhattan Plaza.
It might be that.
Yeah, I think.
And it's two buildings. They're like 40 some odd stories tall.
Right.
We have some friends there.
Well, how nice to have been in the same place for so long.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
And then to come up here, thanks to Leslie McNeil,
Yes.
and find a home with work, thanks to Gene Fleming, sort of integrating you into the community.
Yes.
So, did you ever fantasize about going back to Albuquerque?
Not really. I went back periodically for the first 4 years to design for the Albuquerque Opera Theater, who kept calling me back, and they paid me well and paid my expenses, and so I would go back and design for them. And then I just stopped. I don't really know why. A lot of people moved away. My family moved away. So there was not a big calling to go back.
Right.
I miss it visually. It's a stunning landscape. It's an ugly city, but it's a stunning landscape. And maybe someday I'll enjoy it again. And
So it's the High Plains desert part
Yeah.
that you really,
yeah, it's really, really beautiful.
yeah.
But very dry.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I realized when I moved to New York is how much I loved water.
right.
And I love humidity. I'm one of those crazy people. The hotter and wetter it is, the better.
Oh, that's funny.
I just can't get enough of it. And somebody had told me, well, that's, I did astrology. And they said, well, that's because you're fire, fire, fire. I'm Aries, Leo, Leo. And so the water is important, I guess, to put out
go.
that fire or tamp it down.
Yeah. Yeah, I told you, my sister's out in Albuquerque. When she comes here, she's like, oh my God, look at all the water.
Yeah.
She says, there's just water. There's standing water. There's flowing water. There's bodies of water.
Yeah. I've had friends come out and they get very claustrophobic because they can't see the horizon.
Right.
And in Albuquerque, in the upper part of the city, you can see 50 miles in any direction.
And where did you live in Albuquerque?
The Heights, or
Okay.
Southeast Heights,
Uh-huh.
which
Southeast.
probably means nothing to anybody.
So it's up the side of the sort of a hill there, facing west over the city.
It's the plateau
Okay.
above the Rio Grande, but it's not the foothills of the Sandia Mountains, which
Okay.
then slope up another mile into the sky.
Right. Yeah, that's
Quite
where my sister
spectacular.
lives. And then now she's East Mountain. She's on the other side.
Oh, great! It's green on that side.
It's nice. She lives right on a stream, a year-round stream.
That's wonderful.
Which is so bizarre to think about that. So you mentioned earlier, second year of the Greenwich Village Halloween Parade, that you and your two friends came as dead Hamlets.
No, that was the first year.
Okay.
The second year we came as the harbingers of winter.
Okay. So what is Dead Hamlets? What was that? What were those costumes like?
Well, they were very, were they elaborate? I guess they were elaborate. I tried to be as true to period, which period? Elizabethan period. Yet very ghoulish in our makeup, with gauzy material over our faces and
Okay.
and lots of blue-white makeup, so we looked dead. And like I said, crowns filled with dry ice that you would have to sprinkle with water so that you'd get this mist pouring down the face. And it worked for a couple of minutes, but mostly it just froze our heads.
Well, it sounds kind of fun.
Oh, it was. It was great.
And have you done, you said you've done a couple of hundred Broadway plays. Have you done Shakespeare?
Oh, yeah.
And what Shakespeare plays have you done over there? So what would be
on
your
Broadway, I think the only Shakespeare I did was, I think it was Macbeth, actually. Since I'm not in a theater, I can say that, right? Macbeth with Glenda Jackson.
Because it's bad luck to mention the name of that.
And Robert Palmer, I guess. Yes, on stage you're not supposed to say Hamlet or Macbeth. You say that play, that Shakespearean play.
Why?
I don't know. It's superstition.
I heard that somewhere. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's like you don't whistle in a theater. That one makes kind of sense.
Yeah.
In the past, cues were given by stagehands whistling.
Okay.
And if you whistled at the wrong time, a drop could fly in and
so
brain
there's a
somebody.
good explanation for what
Now,
became
why
the
you're not
superstition.
supposed to have a bouquet of dried flowers and peacock feathers. You're not supposed to have that. And if you do say Macbeth on stage, you turn around 3 times and spit.
Have you ever personally done that?
Oh, yeah. Just in case.
But now you're retired, so you can just say it all you want.
Not in a theater, I can't.
Not in the theater. So, and is that at any point in the theater or just on the stage?
Any place in the theater, you're not supposed to say.
Once you go in the doors, you don't do that. All right. Well, you at some point were working with an organization called Young Will.
Yes.
What is that all about?
That was a short-lived but a wonderful period of time. Our friend Nancy Sands, who my husband knew from way, way back. I think he was in high school. She was in college. They knew each other back in California. And she and her mother came to visit the day we closed on our house in Rhinebeck. And the house next door was coming up for sale, and they looked at it and said, I'm going to buy it. So Nancy became our neighbor. And shortly after that, her old friend Lou, who lived down the street from us in Manhattan, he came up and he bought. And so we had this community of old theater relations. Nancy and I took over for Marguerite Saint-Million, who took care of Rhinebeck Theater Society's children's program.
Right.
And for some reason, she couldn't do it, and so Nancy took it. And this was when we were still at the Morton Library. The first production was Midsummer Night's Dream. And after it all was said and done, we talked about it and thought, let's create a company called Young Will and devote the teaching of Shakespeare to young kids. So
what
there
ages?
Would be, I think sometimes, well, actually, there was one play we did where the youngest was 2 years old. That was Kimberly Kahn's daughter, who could not sit in the audience during rehearsal, and Kimberly said, "Can I just take her on stage for tonight so you calm down?" And it was so beautiful. The minute she was in her mother's arms, she was like, fine. And it was, the look of it was so beautiful. She was playing, Kimberly was playing Lady Capulet, Romeo's mother. And we thought, why wouldn't she have a child? Let's just let her keep the child for the whole run.
So it was a mix
so we
of
did.
Kids and adults?
Yes.
In the company?
All the lovers and others were played by students, kids. The main lover roles were high school.
Okay.
If you did like Midsummer Night's Dream, you have a lot of fairies. They might be younger. And then the super adult roles were played by adults, like Romeo and Juliet's parents. They were adults. So it was a combination, and it worked very well because the adults added a seriousness to the rehearsal process,
Right.
a stature on stage that was really good. But the young lovers were the high school kids, and they were incredible. And so we did that for about 10 or 11 years.
Wow. And where did it finally end up? Where was the stage that it finally ended up on?
The Rhinebeck Performing Arts Center.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
As well as Nancy had also created a in-school production of the same plays. I created a folding screen set that was also based on the Globe. When I say also, one of the things that Nancy and I did, we were treated by Sam Scripps, who is unfortunately deceased now, but a great contributor to the Performing Arts Center, and also a great contributor to the rebuilding of the Globe Theatre in London. Right. So he took us there, and we saw 3 productions. One of them being The Tempest, with Prospero being Prospera, played by Vanessa Redgrave.
Wow.
It was quite remarkable. But anyway, so we were so impressed with how genius the Globe was that we then created a set that was movable, that had a center arch and 2 side entrances and a balcony, and just like the Globe. And the way it functioned was so brilliant because people would come in the left door as people were leaving the right door, and you believe that they aren't seeing each other. And so
Right.
the play just keeps moving.
And who was the set designer for that?
For the Young Will set? Me.
For that set, you just okay. So you did some set designing after deciding it was not for you.
Yeah.
But that sounds like a fabulous project.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
And the kids, I mean, 10 or 12, it seems a little bit young for Shakespeare in my mind, but they took to the material.
Yeah. That's the beauty of Shakespeare. The Shakespeare is universal, and the stories are timeless. The language is a little difficult, but Nancy, who I think she has 12 or 13 Emmy Awards for her writing on Sesame Street, had a very clear understanding of what children can handle with language and discipline and all sorts of things. So she was quite the mother of it. And
they were
brilliant.
unabridged plays.
Oh no, she would rewrite.
Okay.
And pare them down, take out language that was inappropriate or too difficult, and turn them into really accessible versions of his plays. It's really quite brilliant.
That sounds great. I'm sorry that ended.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you can compare it to other similar type of projects where, particularly when you're involved with school, that the parents are all very into it, and they're engaged and they're supportive, and you really get a sense that they've got your back. And when those kids moved on, if you haven't recruited another set of parents who are as dedicated, the project falls apart. And I think that's what it did. It did it naturally. And what was so interesting is that there were some kids from our very first production who were like little fairies, and they were like 8-10 years old, who were playing older lover roles in the same play 10 years later. So it was really quite fulfilling. And many of them, we're still in touch with them, and they can't thank us enough, even though some of them don't do theater. Some of them went on to do professional theater, which is quite thrilling.
It must be really gratifying to see.
Yeah.
And you still teach some, is that right?
No, not really. I mean, I guess I'm always teaching.
You run a drawing workshop every other week?
I'm trying.
Okay.
I'm trying. It's a little difficult. It's naked men drawing naked men.
Really? So the artists are naked as well as the models?
Well, you model and you draw.
Okay,
so
so
that we don't pay a model because we take turns modeling.
uh-huh.
And everybody's naked, and it's not a sex party, but I guess we're all kind of nudists at heart.
Right.
So I've decided I attended a number of these down in the city, and they were quite liberating and just wonderful. And so I'm trying to get that going up here.
Well, I love the idea that, I mean, because traditionally life drawing classes, the model is naked.
That's right.
And everybody else is fully clothed.
Right.
And the model's mostly female.
Right.
And so I love this idea of everybody on the same footing. We're all naked.
Yeah.
Drawing naked.
It's amazing what happens.
Right.
You just all of a sudden you don't care anymore. You're not interested or fascinated. You're just naked and drawing.
Well, certainly getting older helps to become less fascinated with the naked
dare
body.
you? How
No, I was
dare
thinking
you?
for myself, not you, young
okay.
whippersnapper. And so if any of our listeners wanted to go to that, I mean, how do people get invited to be a part of that Naked Men Drawing Naked Men?
Well, I have posted it on Facebook.
Okay.
As Naked Men Drawing Naked Men, and I think I need to change the language. And I'm not doing very well, so I'm going to I am in the process of creating a flyer. That will be. I think what I'm going to call it is, a men's life drawing class
With an
en
asterisk.
naturel.
Okay.
And the image is a model being drawn by several naked men. Nothing exposed except a few butt cracks.
Right. The buttocks.
It's very discreet. And I think that'll get the message out without screaming naked. Because some people just don't
Like
want
a
to
42nd Street sex parlor.
Yeah, right.
Naked,
So
naked,
hopefully it'll take off, and I am available for instruction. I was caught in the third grade drawing a naked woman in class. Third grade. Now what? I'm 8
in Albuquerque.
Yeah, and the teacher scolded me and called my parents. And my parents' response was, how is he going to draw people with clothes if he doesn't know what they look like underneath?
And were your parents artists?
No, they met in the theater,
Okay.
but they got out of that. My father ended up going back to it. But these are my adopted parents.
Okay.
I was born to a painter and a musician. He left when I was 3. She died when I was 5. We were
Yes.
adopted by 2 people who were in the theater, who had been in the theater. So they were artistically bent
Great.
and very supportive.
So you had the nature and the nurture.
Yes, it's quite remarkable.
And all of this happened in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And did you ever reconnect with your father?
I did.
Bio dad?
I did.
And where did that happen?
I stayed at. It was a very unique situation all the way around. Number one, it was me and my brother, and we were both a little old for most adoptions. I was 5, he was 8, and
But these people took both yes.
yes, and against people's advice, they were told not to adopt my brother because he was too old and he was a lost cause. And my adopted parents were like, that's ridiculous. He's 8. And we're not going to separate 2 boys who've just lost their mother. And
I love that.
Yeah,
Who
they
were
were
these-
amazing people. They really were amazing people.
I love that
And
so much.
yeah. The other special consideration, which was also quite remarkable, is that my biological father's parents, my biological grandparents, requested that they stay in touch, or be allowed to stay in touch. So we saw them every Christmas. They lived in Chicago, but they came to Albuquerque, and every Christmas we would see our biological paternal grandparents.
So you had a relationship with them, but not
Right.
with bio dad.
My maternal biological grandparents had disowned my mother, and so they wanted nothing to do with us. So that was that. That's, I was so young, I don't wouldn't know. I wouldn't care. But it was very interesting to keep in touch with the biological grandparents, paternal grandparents.
Right.
Then when my paternal grandmother died, I went to the funeral.
In Chicago.
No, they had moved to Albuquerque.
Oh, nice.
So I guess I was in late junior high or high school when they moved to Albuquerque. Why, I don't know. Maybe they wanted to be close to us.
Were they
Maybe
very active in your upbringing?
No.
No. There goes
Not
that
at
theory.
all.
Yeah.
But I went to the funeral, and there were faces that reflected mine, which was kind of wonderful. Because I didn't really see my face in my grandparents, but I saw my face in my cousins.
Right.
But my father did not attend. He was living in Germany at the time. Why he didn't come to his mother's funeral, I will never know, except I think he was basically a jerk. And of course, he left when I was 3.
And so where did the meeting happen between you and him?
I was checking up on my grandfather, who I was concerned about because he had lost his wife of 50 years.
Right.
As he said, something like 50 years, 6 months, 33 hours. He actually said that. So I was checking up on him one day, and he says, "Oh, just a second." He handed the phone to my biological father, who was visiting. And it was kind of awkward. He said, "Do you want to meet?" And so we met. And he was very like, "You want to get stuff off your chest?" I'm like, "No, I had a great life.
No.
Everything's good."
How old were you?
I was 19.
Okay.
And we stayed in touch for a while. And he ended up moving to Santa Fe from Germany. He was a wonderful painter. He was just an exquisite painter, but very prickly and very difficult to deal with. My brother spent more time with him than I did because I was living in New York. My brother was still living in Albuquerque. And I think at one point he said, "Oh, those darn Spicanos are going to end up taking over the state." Well, he had married a Spicano, which is a white Mexican-American woman. That was our biological mother.
Okay.
We are, well, not Mexican, we're Spanish. And so my brother thought, that's probably one of the rudest things I've ever heard. So he said, "Enough of you."
Right. That's my
I continued
mom.
to sort of stay in touch via emails and stuff like that. And during the first Obama campaign, he sent me some horrible piece of political crap
Egads.
that I responded to, and then he responded with, "Don't ever send me anything like that again," or blah, blah, blah. And I responded with, "You're the one who sent me this," because he was convinced that if Obama was elected, the country would be destroyed. And I thought, well, I can't be with somebody. I can't continuing to engage with somebody like that.
And so was that
And he thought the same about me, and so we didn't. Then I got back in touch with him a few years later because I'd had a very powerful dream, which I don't usually dream about dead people.
Okay.
He was alive, but
So you had this dream and you reconnected with your pop because of this dream.
yeah, I just wanted to make sure he was okay because I figured if I dreamt, maybe something's wrong. And he bitched and moaned about his hip and his schizophrenic wife, and everything was miserable. And I thought, well, I'm sorry to hear. I hope you're all right. And then that's the last I heard. He died 2 years ago. About 5 years ago, maybe a little more, I got a "I think you're my cousin" message on Facebook.
Through 23andMe kind of stuff, or
No,
genealogy.com?
it was just a Facebook post
Uh-huh.
from a gal named Amy Kermansky.
Uh-huh.
Now, my biological father was Richard Kerman, and I thought, well, that's not Kermansky. So I decided I'd check her out, and I'm looking through her photos. I don't see it. And then there she is with my biological grandparents. I'm like, okay, she's legit. So I contacted her, and we have stayed in touch. She has had kind of the same relationship with that family. It's a very dysfunctional and unfortunate family.
Sounds like it. So did the news of your...
But she was in touch with my father because her father was his brother, right? So there was no adoption or separation there. So they were all still a family.
Right.
So she was still in communication with him. When he died, she got me the Zoom connection to his funeral service.
Okay. So did the news of his demise come through her to you?
Yes. Well, we had been in touch, and I knew that he was ailing. At one point, he had said that he felt obligated to leave me and my brother, his house in Santa Fe, which I thought, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I could dig that.
Yeah.
You weren't there and you never paid child support, but I'll do that. Sounds great. Something happened between then and his death, and the will in bold type says, "It is my intention that my two sons, Mark and Richard, receive nothing from my will."
Ouch.
And I thought, where did that come from? Now, my cousin is suggesting that it was her sister who kind of
got to him.
And he was suffering with Alzheimer's and not doing well.
Oof.
And why fight it? You know, it was like, I thought, okay, that's it. We're done. I'm finally an orphan. I say that because I lost my mother, then I lost my biological father, then I lost my biological mother. Who was left? The first person to leave, my natural father, right? And so I'm just like going, I just want to be an orphan. I just want it to all be done. Right. So when he died, it was really quite liberating. It was like, I don't have to think about it. I don't have to deal with it. It's done.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So when you first connected with him, or over the years that you were connected, did you ask, like, why did you leave?
No.
I mean, that's what...
No. I when we met and he said, do you want to get things off your chest, right?
Right.
And at that point I was, like I say, 19 or whatever. And I was like, everything's wonderful, you know.
Right.
Nothing could be wrong with the world. I just, at that point, I knew I never wanted to have kids. And I knew that I didn't have the patience. And so I felt an empathy rather than an anger. I thought, man, if I'm anything like you, I'd probably walk away from my kids too. Is that true? I don't know. Maybe I'd be a better person. I don't know. But I understood.
Or on some level, maybe, I don't want to pass the potential for that stuff on to other fresh lives.
I don't know that I was that smart.
Well, I think people's subconsciouses are often smarter than the front of their mind.
So me and my brother both turned out to be gay, so there's no continuation from that line anyway. That whole line is gone. Our father married twice again, but never had any other children. So that line is dead.
And so what did the liberation feel like? You said when he died, you felt liberated.
I would imagine it's universal that there is a sense of obligation with children and parents. And I spent a lot of time with my adopted father as he was failing with cancer, and kind of was the strong one, I guess, of the bunch, which is, I'm kind of self-promoting myself, but my brother was a mess, and my mother was, she's losing her husband, and I just sort of took charge. Then when she died, which is almost 30 years later, I was her executor and power of attorney and all that stuff. But even before she started to fail, you grow up and you start thinking, we had problems. There was difficulties. Nothing was perfect, but we're human. We love each other. And now she needs me. And so then you take on that role of caregiver, hopefully. And then when that's gone, it's a relief.
Yeah.
Because it can be really, really hard. Now, sometimes it isn't. Some people live to a ripe old age. They never lose their sensibilities, and then they die in the middle of the night with a heart attack.
Right.
But when you have to deal with somebody as they crumble slowly,
Yeah.
it's exhausting, emotionally and physically. And when that's done, it's done. And you're like, I don't have to take care of that anymore. And with my biological father, it was kind of this... I don't know, a sense of duty, even though he wasn't there, but I couldn't just completely ignore the fact that he was suffering, or I wanted to make sure he was okay. And when that was gone, it was gone.
Right. And so it was a
lovely.
little bit of a liberation.
Yeah. And you all of a sudden feel like a full adult.
Right.
There
How
is
so?
nobody who's going to take care of you
Oh, right.
but you.
Yeah.
Your parents will always take care of you, and you
Yeah.
kind of know that.
Right.
When they're gone, they're gone.
Right.
That's it.
As a friend said, then nobody's blocking for you.
Right.
You know, it's you running with the ball.
That's right.
Now, I want to ask a couple more questions before we end.
Sure.
You, at one point, were making art dolls.
Yes.
Art dolls. And I couldn't find any pictures of those, any images online. What are those things like?
Well, I haven't done one in many, many years. I had done some window display in New York City, and one of them was of Anne Hampton Calloway. I don't know if you know that name. She's a very well-known cabaret singer. She just won a big songwriting award. Congratulations. She's wonderful. She composed and sings. She was working in the when she
Boogie Woogie, you boy from Company C?
The Nanny.
Oh.
Right. That song. Right. That's Anne Hampton Calloway.
I'm sticking with my guess.
That's how she became the nanny. Right. Anyway, it was a soft sculpture of her sitting at the piano and a soft sculpture of two people sitting at the table in this restaurant in this big picture window, which I did a lot of work for. One of which being a life-size mannequin of Lily Tomlin, which got me to be quite close with Lily.
Was
for
she
a while.
wearing an operator's headset?
No, she was. No. But anyway, Nancy of Young Will knew this gallery owner and his husband, who was her accountant. And this guy owned an art gallery, and he loved doll art.
Amazing. What was the gallery called? Do you remember? What was the restaurant called?
The gallery was called CFM Gallery, but I don't think it meant me gallery, but it was CFM.
Me. Oh, yeah.
You know, once I heard that, I was like, why would you name your gallery that? But
Yeah.
he was very much into the doll art. And so I did work for him for a while. But I was a Broadway scenic artist. I didn't have time to do that stuff. And they would take at least a month per doll. And, he would notify me and say, oh, the doll show's coming up this year. Have you got anything for me? And I'd be like, oh, God. And I'd get busy working on it. And he finally dropped me. He said, you're just not producing enough. But that's all right. Demi Moore has one of my dolls.
No way. And she went to
She
the
has a
show,
doll
I guess.
museum. And she came to one of the shows and she said, but that doll is Icarus just before he falls from the sky. So he's got these great wings that are slightly toasted.
Did you make them actually out of wax?
No, there's a wire understructure and then layers and layers of filler and then skinned in stocking material. The faces and the hands and feet were often a product called Sculpey.
Oh, yeah.
Or Fimo, which is an oven hardening plastic.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned just before we went on air, I think, or maybe during, art studio views.
Yes.
And do you have an open studio?
I will.
this coming August. I think it's Labor
September.
Day.
I think it's September.
Labor Day weekend,
First
usually.
weekend of September, yeah.
And so you'll have an open studio and
Yes.
people can come see your stuff.
Yes.
Will you have any of those dolls?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Well,
I sold a number of them, but I have
produce
a number
faster.
of them too.
Yeah.
No. I'm not going to make any more
Rhinebeck
dolls
crowd,
for it. No.
super
No.
tight. And last but not least,
Yes.
Nadine Robbins, who's just, I know a lot of artists, a lot of painters. I mean, she's just ridiculously good. Mm-hmm. And she's a photorealist painter. And I don't always love photorealism, but the way she does it is so good. She did some portraits of you over the years. Can you tell us about them?
The first one, I met Nadine through Sinterklass. She created a pop-up book for it's the Sinterklass book, and you open it up and Sinterklass pops up. It's all done out of paper. And I think I helped with some of the drawings for that book, for her cutouts. And at that time, she had begun what she was calling a 10 and 12 project. She wanted to create 10 portraits in 12 months.
Okay.
Large portraits. They're 3 feet by 5 feet. And she asked if I was interested, and I said sure. And so she photographed Donald and me, my husband and I, and painted this portrait. Along the way, she decided she wanted to paint another picture of me, and then another picture of me, and then another picture of me. I don't know what her fascination was, but anyway, she's done 3 or 4. And at the end of this 10 and 12, she was quite gloomy because she had only done 12, or she had only done 8, I think.
Of the 12 she wanted to do.
And I said, but Nadine, every one of them is of 2 people. So that's 16 portraits in 12 months. And she goes, oh, thank you. Yes,
That's
she was
great.
like, oh, I'm so, yeah, thank you. And they are remarkable. I look at that and, I mean, I can recognize this tooth.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Her work is just amazing. But where she's gone since then is just beyond comprehension.
She's
just amazing.
continued to improve. And I think she lost sight in one of her eyes.
No, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 years ago. And she's still making these phenomenal paintings.
Wow.
And I just looked this up. Since we mentioned her, it's NadineRobbinsArt.com.
Yes.
Nadine, ROBBINS art.com. And I'm just looking at my phone, and just even the stuff that's there is so spectacular.
Yes. Yes. If you go to her site, you'll probably stumble across those that she has painted of us or me. We have a print of the one she did of me and my husband. It's called The Lights of Broadway. And it's a lovely print. It's 14 inches by 12 inches, but the original is enormous.
How nice. And do you collect much art?
No.
Come on.
I can't
Think
afford it.
over for a
I
second.
can't afford
All right, there
to
you
collect
go.
art.
All right. Well, NadineRobbinsArt.com, and your website, which you're just about to update with all kinds of wonderful stuff, is SelectBackdrops.com.
No, that's the one that exists.
Okay.
And that's really about the
Do you have a
backdrops.
URL for posterity?
It's coming, and it will, if I'm correct, it will be Studio Prouse. But I don't know the numbers or
PROUSE, StudioPress, probably .com.
probably something like that.
That's great. Well, we will look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
And Richard Prouse, thank you so much for being here and
My
talking
pleasure.
and staying late. And anybody who tuned in later and stayed late, thanks for doing that. I guess I could say happy Friday, but by the time you tune in, it'd be Saturday. All right. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was very fun.
So much fun.